Fans.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah, this was sent by someone called Popper or Big Popper or something.
We don't even know the guy's name.
Wow,
No,
you are really sticking it to me because I've just got my GB News mug here. No fans. No, I mean, I love the mug. You can buy it for $4.99. But I'm not getting sent any love mail like this.
Well, you could send it to Louis Schaefer. Maybe they love Louis Schaefer. I'm just saying that I'm available for gifts.
Everybody loves Louis Schaefer. Well, OK, this is slightly depressing me at the start. All right, first of all, let's have a quick peek at how Monday's front pages are looking. We have the Daily Mail, patients trying to escape Labour's Welsh NHS. The Times, shots fired in migrant clash before vessel sank. Guardian, lower income pupils expected to be hit hardest by great deflation. The Express, Brexit boost bringing business back to Britain. The Sun, Kane could play for Germany. And finally, the Daily Star, we're made for it, and those were your front pages. First up, let's take a look at the Times, Lewis, and breaking news about yesterday's tragedy.
Well, it is a tragedy, and it's the Times. Shots fired in migrant clash before the vessel sank, and this has to do with the vessel that there was the migrant boat that six migrants died, and there was an altercation that went on in France before this happened.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that they're saying. I don't think they're saying it's directly related to it, but it just shows the situation that it's like chaos that's involved.
Well, it's criminals. It's people with guns and whatnot, and it may well have led to some kind of panic or people launching these boats in conditions that were which led to this tragedy, terrible weather and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, it just shows how. I mean, these criminals are based in France. I know that there are connections to other.
But you know what,
and whatnot, but
you know what we're doing. We're I don't know how to make this funny. We're blaming criminals. The fact is that of course it's going to be criminals involved. But the fact is that it's like I'm waving to you across the street, or you're waving across to a child and say, "Come across the street." It's a busy street, but you say, "Come across," and come across, and people come across and they get hit by a car. Who's to blame? The person who's.
Jeez, what?
Yeah.
OK, I'm going to stop your analogy.
No, ask Paul. I told this to Paul before, and he said it was totally reasonable.
Oh, really? You did, Paul? Well done. You're trying to get him fired to get yourself some more work.
Lewis is now, by a Schaefferian standard, I think the analogy works to some degree. So what Lewis is saying is, if we've got people on this side saying, come on over, it's a safe place to come, and they come and they're injured on the way, we have to take some responsibility, I think is what you were saying.
Yeah, he was about to bring in some other elements.
There was kids involved, and we weren't sure. But the analogy, I think, does stand up to a little bit of scrutiny. I'm at a total loss with this now. There's two stories here. One is the shots fired, which seems to be Kurds and Afghans fighting in Dunkirk, ironically. And the other thing is this terrible story about yet more migrants dying in the ocean on the way to Great Britain. And I'm not sure what to do now, because I don't know why they want to come. It seems to be the sort of hot spot of Europe to come to. The final destination is Great Britain. We probably ought to start dropping the Guardian over enemy lines so they can read how bad this country is.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's particularly true. They do go to, but there are certain people who want to come to England. Maybe they have, certainly Afghans, if English is their second language, if they have relatives over here or any connections. So other countries are taking more migrants. It's not that. But there are some people who want to come to the UK, not just because we're seen as this all-encompassing welcome free-for-all. You know, they have other reasons. There are legitimate reasons as well. I do want to say something before we get to it. There's interestingly, it was UK people turning up to save the boats first, and even though it was closer to France, they don't believe. But there seems to be this unwillingness to blame France, because they're afraid of this 500 million that we've invested in stopping this kind of backfiring.
And you're absolutely right. And to add some balance to this story, that 500 or 485 million that we spent has reduced the amount of people that have come across, which is a story we don't cover too often. Yeah. However, it would appear, and certainly within the Times they say, that there seems to have been a bit of peak during August. They're suggesting because a lot of the French officers have gone on holiday. I don't strictly believe that to be true. However, it is kind of welcoming to hear that there has been some sort of reduction. But at the end of the day, people are still dying. Like, on a ridiculously regular basis. And whilst I was flippant about why don't we tell them how bad it is, you know, like they do in The Guardian, at the end of the day, we're going to have to do something to stop it.
Well, they're trying. Right, well, look, let's move on to something hopefully a little less sad and depressing. We've got the Express. They're being all expressy, Paul.
Yeah, they are being expressy, but you know, we talked about a very depressing story then. This is essentially a good news story, or it is at least to the Express. Brexit boost bringing business back to Britain. So firms are benefiting from Brexit by bringing business back to Britain. A quarter of UK manufacturers say they have repatriated the production of goods, and this has been enabled by Brexit, essentially.
Well, is it enabled by Brexit or forced their hand via Brexit?
Yeah. The Express would tell you that it's been enabled by Brexit. I think it's a bit much more of a nuanced answer than that, as you suggest. However, it has to be good. Let's say whatever reason, it has to be good. It has to be good. It has to be good. I mean,
it better be good. Please, let's pray.
It's in the Express. It has to be good.
No, but I think it has to be good in the sense that things being manufactured here has to be good for us. Whoever is living here, whoever is working here, whoever is occupying these wonderful shores.
Well, it's good, arguably, for increasing jobs, increasing our base in terms of our manufacturing base. There are questions about, is it good for the customer, who will arguably be paying more than they would if it was being imported from China or...
Well, we have some real interesting conflictions going on, because if you look at it from a climate change perspective, it's fantastic. If you need to be self-sufficient, you don't want to be flying bit...
It's always interesting when
well, this is it.
The climate change is always brought in when it suits supporting whatever issue...
But this is it. We can play any one of these games.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Lewis, come and play your game, mate.
I'll play my game. I don't think this story, and maybe Paul will add more detail to it, but I think the people want to bring it back. They haven't brought it. It's not that a quarter have brought the stuff back, right? And so they would like to bring it back. I mean, it's pie in the sky. I mean, and businesses are always moving businesses around, and they're trying. And this is a report done by Esther McVeigh, who's a lovely lady. I think she works here at GBNews. She's a Tory MP, so they're trying to find the bright side.
I don't know if she
Brexit.
actually came out with a report. I think she's commenting on it. But one thing it does make, before we move in, an interesting point is about whether we actually have the technical skills to be able to accommodate these jobs, to have the necessary workers who can actually do this stuff. And, you know, if it develops that, then I'm all for it, of course, absolutely. But whether we're there yet or not. Lewis, what's The Guardian going with?
The Guardian is going with lower income pupils expected to be hardest by grade deflation. And that has to do with the COVID business where they couldn't get the grades tested by outside sources, so the teachers graded their own kids, and they graded...
Hey, everybody's got an A star. What a coincidence. Exactly. A particularly bright year.
And because they love it. And, of course, I'm going to guess, let's just say it's true. I mean, even though you can't believe anything The Guardian writes, or any of these newspapers for that matter, but they're all a bunch of liars. But basically, it probably will hurt the poorest people, because the teachers of the poorest kids, they probably have sympathy. They're not like your teachers who are brutal to you, probably at that posh private school that you went to, right? They'd hit you in the head. And this reminds...
Get your Latin right.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, we're not going to give you a high grade just because this COVID thing. Anyway, it's a funny story because it's The Guardian saying this, and it reminds me of a story in America about...
So, Paul, what do you think?
Genuinely, no, honestly, we should hear this anecdote from Lewis. We should hear this. It made me laugh. It made me laugh.
You've already said the story.
Told me.
Okay,
we meet for hours.
The story. It's the joke is the nuclear war, and how the different newspapers in America reported. And a newspaper in America reports, the New York Times reports, end of the world. Poor people and minorities, women and minorities affected most. And then they show Washington Post, end of the world, congressional sessions to be delayed. And the way it says in the Los Angeles Times, oh my God, this is not as interesting.
Oh my God, this is the last time I indulge you. Paul, I'm blaming you for that because you said it was a great...
No, I have to finish. They want to hear the end of it.
If you tweet Lewis Schaefer to find out the end of this rubbish joke. Now, Paul, Lewis, I believe, has got it wrong because actually, arguably, in the fee-paying schools, the teachers are going to be a little bit more forgiving with their marking, shall we say, than they might be at your local...
Well, because your parents are going to complain and maybe take the kid out.
So what do you think?
But in my school, in Peckham High School, in my kids' school, it wasn't a fee-paying school, but the teachers feared for their lives.
Yeah, when you come in, I'm guessing. Right, Paul, finally, something lighter in the Star, please.
Yes, we're med for it. Now, this is a story about how the French apparently own their weather and they're going to send it our way, and we are going to have a slightly warmer period. What I would say about climate change is, yes, please. We have been promised climate change for years, and we're not getting it, and I'm really disappointed. I want it to be nice and warm. I want to be able to wander around my garden in my underpants like any self-respecting working-class man.
Humble brag with your garden.
Yeah, with my underpants.
He's got a huge garden. It's big.
It's the one thing I've earned in my life is my garden.
But he is the common. He is the common man.
I am the common man with the common sense.
I have a balcony in Peckham, and he's got a garden in the countryside. Okay. This story. Just remember one thing: you will never hear in the history of the world warm weather comes from Norway. Warm weather comes across the North Sea. It always comes from the south. This is where the warm weather in this country comes from. There's only one weather pattern where warm weather comes. It comes up from the Sahara, across France.
I've got to be honest, I kind of lost my track there. I was just trying to imagine what the punchline to that joke from before was. Right, that's the front page all covered with our opinions. Stick through, though, for migrants. We've got NHS, we've got ageism, and that's just Lewis. See you in 2.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie. It's 45 minutes to midnight. We've got 15 great stories, 2 excellent comedians. Let's go. Starting with Monday's Guardian. And what's this about foreigners coming over here and clogging up our services, Lewis?
Well, you could call those people foreigners, except you're talking about my children, who are half Scottish. Anyway, Steve Barclay he's the head of the Health Secretary, to Scottish and Welsh NHS patients requesting care in England. England's Health Secretary says devolved administrations have worse backlogs than the British, which they roundly dismiss. And the Scottish and the Welsh says, no, we're doing great. What are you doing offering us charity? And it's basically because there's a backlog, because of the COVID, because of the fact that it's the NHS, because people want free treatment, which has been escalating. But you have to remember that every death from delay is a bonus to the NHS because it's somebody that they don't have to treat.
Wonderful. So, I mean, Paul, it kind of sounds like Steve Barclay is kind of being a pooster here.
He is being a pooster, but, you know, it's an easy win, and the statistics do bear out, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But in Wales, there are sort of 22,000 people who are waiting over 78 weeks as an outpatient, and in England, waiting times for patients over 78 weeks have been virtually eliminated recently.
Because they're all dead, like Lewis says.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know, I'm not a great big fan of devolution, and what devolution has done is basically drag Scotland and Wales down to where England have always been. And as a result, it's a bit like the pigs on Animal Farm. They thought they were going to do it differently, and they were unable to do it differently, and essentially they became humans themselves. So what Scott...
What with you two on analogies?
Well, I think I was relatively intelligent. I tried to be Andrew Doyle for a moment there and failed.
Just by mentioning a book.
But I mentioned a book, and animals in it, and a farm. But I would say that this is a small victory for the Conservative Party and England, because whilst, let's not forget, our waiting lists and our services aren't much better, just for a week or so, they are slightly better.
Well, that's what I was going to say. This is kind of the worst brag in history. Yeah. Like, we're terrible, but hey, they're a little bit worse than us, guys. That's not really how you're going to be sort of selling your government.
Well, remember, the NHS is like they have a free cheese program in America where they offer people free cheese. And it was horrible cheese, and it had been stored for like years and years, but there were lines around the block for free cheese. And it was like unlimited demand for free cheese. And that's what the NHS is.
Just like the NHS. Wonderful analogy there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It is. It's like free cheese.
Sticking with the NHS, Paul, and hopefully no more cheese analogies, will this Telegraph story have us reaching for the pots and pans again?
Oh, maybe. Maybe. No, not for me. Guy's and St Thomas's Hospital in London has performed 3 months' worth of breast cancer surgeries in 5 days in a potential blueprint for clearing the NHS backlog. So this involves it's like a Formula One pit stop type of surgery where they've got 2 theatres running at once, a surgeon in each, and one core team that splits between the two. And what they've been able to do is drastically reduce the waiting list, which is fantastic news. Yeah. Now, I think, and I genuinely believe this is fantastic news, and I think you have to take politics out of these situations sometimes, because if you're the sort of person who doesn't want, or you're so partisan that you think the waiting list going down and breast cancer surgery going down is bad because it's happened under a Tory government, then you've got bigger problems than you're admitting to yourself.
I don't think anybody's really saying that, are they?
No, there must be one person out there, Josh.
I think I spoke...
Your pal Owen.
Yes.
No, I will say it. I will say it. This is a complete non-story. This involves 22 patients in one hospital, and they didn't... And from what I can read, and don't get upset about me, because I might have missed something here, but at the end...
Can you imagine?
We can imagine. is that what they were doing? They were doing important surgeries, but they weren't life-changing, immediately needed surgeries. They were reconstruction surgeries, which are needed to make people feel good.
I believe some of them were.
And the other kind of surgeries were from women who want, because they had the gene, supposedly. Well, okay? And obviously it's a very...
But I think the point of it here is, Paul, that they've set out a framework here of they're sort of ramping up the kind of surgeries this can be applied to. And it sounds like sort of like MASH, where there's just a lot of different things.
Yeah, that was the analogy that immediately came to mind. Not MASH necessarily, but sort of triage in a military situation. Yeah. And you can spin it whichever way you like. You can make it look good, you can make it look bad. You can say, why are we running a military operation in our hospitals? Why haven't we got enough people to manage this? However, it is a blueprint that's different and a framework that's different to what's currently happening, and it's solving a problem. Whether that's... I mean, I'm not sure for the people that have these operations, they are just...
You know what? It is, and I'm gonna say something horrible. I follow this guy, and I personally do not believe that cancer is a genetic disease. And to have this kind of pre-surgery, I think, is really possibly wrong. Google me, tweet me, and say you don't know what you're talking about, Louis Schaefer. I'm an award-winning.
Look at that. It's like the bloody broom cupboard.
Who's going to lose their job there? Me not for stopping you, or for you, sir?
No, you say. It's your job. So
I'm the one. Okay, so you say whatever you want, and if I don't stop you, then it's my fault.
Yes, that's how
it works.
That's how censorship works in this country.
Okay, so I've got to be the censor.
Yes, you do. That's the way it works. You've got to belittle me. You've got to crush anything that I say. You've got to make fun of. But the people out there who know anything about Thomas Seyfried.
Okay, Sunday's Express now, and it seems that Go Woke or Go Broke now includes our tax money, Lewis.
Yeah, Go Woke. Woke government laws costing taxpayers billions every year, according to new research. And it says the Adam Smith Institute, which I didn't have time to research what the Adam Smith Institute, but let me just say
you were
this.
too busy reading about cancer and
because I had to do backup research on it. It was a major cancer story. Is that basically that they are not exactly an open-minded thing. They're a very right-wing organization, the Adam Smith. They're in favor of freedom, everything. And they're basically
strangely,
saying...
the Express doesn't mention that.
Strangely, right?
How bizarre.
Exactly. Well, they're like the reverse of the Guardian. The Guardian lies, the Express lies. And it says... that
only GBNews tells
Would you let me finish this,
all right.
I have a hard enough time focusing as it is. I'm short attention span. Okay, I did read this thing. You can ask Paul. I read the thing.
He did?
And it says that the government set out 5 principal themes that they must be tackled, which is COVID-19 recovery, economic inequality, climate change, equal opportunity, and well-being. But these aren't about money and what businesses should be about money. And at the end of the day, this is about just one more ESG bull. It's BlackRock telling people...
What it is, Paul, I think, is that we're not necessarily getting the best value for money. It should be an economic decision, and by bringing in these values, we're not actually getting value. Is that the argument?
No, exactly. And believe it or not, in a long distant past, I had a real job. I was an operations manager for a business, and we learned things like Lean and Six Sigma, which was how you run your businesses most efficiently. And under the guise of ideology, and I hate to say this, ideology business, it sounds like I'm going to go on a rant, but under the guises of ideology, we have forgotten hundreds of years of industrial techniques that we've learnt on how to make things more efficient, and we're trying to
exploit workers.
We're trying, well, perhaps, but it's how to exploit systems so we can get the most efficient and economical outcomes. And we seem to have lost that by trying to crowbar ideology into the process as it goes. And at some point, I'm not suggesting that you should throw babies out with bathwaters. I'm not suggesting that things like equality and opportunity and well-being are bad. I am suggesting, however, that perhaps climate change and crowbarring that into every other process isn't great. And we're in danger here.
Would you have an opinion? Would you say what's the truth?
He's made an opinion, but I think the
no,
other
he
thing
said, I don't know. He's being mealy.
No, he's not at all. But look, we're going to move on. I will just say it's very hard to prove this stuff, and that is part of the problem as well. Right, better give this next story in the mail to Paul, as I'd probably get arrested if Lewis was involved.
Well, I'm not going to sit on the fence with this one, I can tell you. Calling someone old could land Scots with a criminal record under new woke laws being introduced by the SNP to tackle ageism. Now, can we all agree at this point, it feels like the patients have overtaken the asylum. Being rude is not...
being Scotland.
Well, it is in this case, and this is all part of
a hate crime, right there.
Yeah, well, exactly, and luckily I'm not in Scotland, because you're absolutely right. I would be in danger of saying that and committing a hate crime in Scotland. Look, being rude is not a hate crime. Saying someone is old or a Karen is not a hate crime. It is rude, it's unpleasant, and we should probably do better. However, it's the last thing we've got. I mean, this is Scotland, for goodness sake. In Scotland, they are brilliant at being rude. Why would you take it away from them? Why would you take rudeness away from any of us? Because it's the last thing we've got now. We can't do anything else. Ageism is funny as well. I don't know. I mean, half my routines are gone now.
I mean, Lewis, partly, this whole thing is they're adding ageism to their previous characteristics of hate crime, which are sexuality, but isn't part of it that it doesn't really matter, there's not that many old people in Scotland?
They all died of heroin.
Yes.
Heroin. I think it's kind of so funny, the idea you can be arrested and put in jail because this kind of thing. It's imagine the guy's in jail. What are you in for? What are you in for? I call Louis Schaefer a grumpy old man. Oh my God, you can't do that. You can't do that. I think it's similar to, can I put a little historical perspective on this? It's like we're in the end of days. It's like they got rid of Cromwell because he prevented people from dancing and singing and having parties, right? You learned that in your fancy school that you went to. And someday they're gonna say we're getting rid of the government here because they prevented people from kind of being rude to each other.
Yeah, but isn't the thing is that they passed this legislation, but they haven't actually enacted on it because they don't have the police power to be able to do anything about it. But also, I remember there was a thing about Humza Yousaf. He actually would have been done using this because he referred to Isla, Bryson, as a man. And that actually breaks the legislation that he himself has put into place. It's ridiculous.
You could never have enough police officers to police this because you'd literally need a police officer per conversation.
Okay. Right, one more before the break, and it's Monday's Mail. And Lewis, do you think any of these diseases actually exist?
Well, yes. How COVID locked.
A little bit of a GB News headliners in-joke there.
Yeah. Well, we won't make it an in-joke. This is according to the Mail, how COVID lockdowns opened a Pandora's box of diseases, from old foes like polio to new enemies like monkeypox. Which is, you laugh when you hear this. You know it's complete BS.
And you had polio in your childhood. I mean, not you personally.
Well, do you want to know something?
Grew up with it.
Well, this is basically a press release written by the WHO, the WHO, not that bad, to promote vaccines. And as anybody knows about me, and I'm speaking directly to the people out there, I completely support vaccines.
You put that on your dating profile, don't you?
He's reading that off the wall.
On your dating profile, you say that you're 48 years old and you support vaccines. But, I mean, this is quite serious, though, Paul. I mean, it just shows that this is another sign of unintended consequences. People said it at the time, but you have things like the super cold that came out in Australia. You have more people dying. You have children dying of these because they hadn't built up their immune systems because of lockdown. I mean, this is worrying, right?
I'll read a sentence from this that they have discovered that would have got you banned from Twitter in 2020. Not mixing socially meant no exposure to common germs which train the immune system to fight off future infections. If you had said we shouldn't do this, if you'd said that exact sentence and put it onto Twitter in 2020, it probably wouldn't have made it any further than about 2 minutes. The trouble is they used fear, and I was scared. So I wasn't, Lewis and I have had this discussion before, I went along with everything willingly. But they used fear as a tool. And maybe some would argue that they should never have done that. Some would argue that it was the only way to do it. But at the end of the day, all they got was control. And the byproduct of this is exactly what we're seeing now.
Yeah. And, I mean, there is something ironic, though, from this article, is that now you can go up to people with masks and say, by the way, you're killing people with your mask. Anyway, congratulations, you've made it halfway. Come back when the reels are really going to come off. We've got lesbian dating, touch rugby, and the Minister for Toilets. See you there.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. We've got rain coming up through the next 24 hours, could be heavy at times, but the good news is that it does start to turn drier by the middle of the week. Low pressure in charge at the moment, but that moves out the way as we head towards Wednesday and high pressure replaces it, settling our weather down. This evening we have outbreaks of heavy rain pushing in across the West Country, Wales, spreading north and eastwards as we move through into the early hours. This turning heavy at times over parts of northern Wales, northern England, and Met Office warning in force here. Clearer skies for Northern Ireland, Scotland, some showery rain in places, and temperatures generally remaining in double figures. So a wet start across England and Wales Monday morning. Heavy rain across Transpennines routes in particular if you're travelling here. Rain heavy as well across parts of Wales, just slowly pushing eastwards through the day. Sunshine and showers for Northern Ireland and Scotland. Again, some of these heavy at times too. And temperatures generally the high teens to low 20s, quite a muggy feel where we do see any sunshine across central and western parts of England and Wales later. On Tuesday, a much calmer picture. High pressure starting to build in as that low pressure moves out of the way. Still fairly unsettled, so a day of sunny spells and scattered showers. Some of the showers on the heavy side. And then it settles down Wednesday into Thursday. Plenty of sunny spells and temperatures starting to rise.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, and let's get straight into Monday's Express, where, Paul, I guess this means there's no more lesbian dating for you.
Yeah, what I'm about to read is an actual line in the newspaper. Trans row over female-only lesbian speed dating after male with erect penis attended. Now,
where were you last Monday, Lewis?
Exactly. Well, look, isn't it time now that we just switch the lights off? Civilization is over. The lesbian with erect penis. It sounds like the sort of video that Lewis and I would enjoy watching together.
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, it's a ridiculous thing, the idea that that's a transphobic statement. It's a rhetorical question. But the thing is, I got partly involved in this argument, gender ideology and whatnot, is because there are also things like there's something called the cotton ceiling, which were classes for trans women to persuade biological women, lesbians, to have sex with them. And it was like basically gaslighting, like, no, I'm a real woman and whatever. And it's just... and also, it's arguably homophobic. Stonewall now changed the definition of lesbian and gay to same-gender attracted. Not same-sex attracted, same gender. So this is the end result of that, where you have male-bodied people turning up to lesbian events, and they're the bigots because they're trying to protect those spaces. It wasn't rhetorical. I don't know.
No, I'm
that, Lewis. It's fine.
No, I'm just actually thinking about that. So it actually almost makes sense because you're attracted to the image of what a woman is, even if that.
I know that. That's like you. You're not attracted to the actual person inside, are you, Lewis?
Yeah. I mean, this story is very interesting because basically, I think what's going on right now is men entering. If you call trans women men, which I'm not saying that I do, which I do, but it's saying that this is. Women spent decades invading men's spaces, men's locker rooms.
All right, that's not what we're talking about now. What do you think about this story, Lewis, in the Mail? Should men be allowed to chase women as long as they don't tackle them?
Tag Rugby Group at Centre of Trans Row, after wholeheartedly encouraging male-born players to join female-only sessions. So the boss of this company, which is called Tag Rugby, where they play tag rugby, it's not even like real rugby. So, you could play it tall or short or fat or, you know what I mean? No one, I don't think anybody gets hurt. And there's been a complaint made that it hasn't even happened yet. And this woman who's a lawyer, this Lucy Massoud, which is a great name for a lawyer, she's masseuing. They love to sue these lawyers, is complaining that there might be a woman entering this trans rugby thing.
But is she not? She's a Muslim, and she's saying she doesn't want to participate in male events where biological males.
Yes, she might, but it hasn't even happened yet.
Okay. What do you think about this, Paul?
So it's really interesting. This is, you've got to make this stuff binary in order for it to work, really. However, okay, let's just stay from the start. This is one of the few sports that men and women can play equally because you're just running around.
Darts.
And you're not really touching each other.
Snooker.
Yeah, it does.
Although there is an argument here about collisions, like they happen by accident, but, a male bumping into you is going to be different
But just for the point of argument, let's just say that could happen. However, the women's spaces, could just let them. There are women-only swimming sessions in my local swimming baths because women feel uncomfortable around men. There are Muslim-only women's swimming sessions as well, on the basis that their religion forbodes them to do certain things, and it's just an hour put aside, right? So at the end of the day, can we not just allow them to have this? If they want to play just with women, let's allow them to. And if you've got a penis, maybe you shouldn't on this occasion.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing also about the story is that this organisation already has mixed ones. So they got male, and they already have mixed. So there are options for it's not like trans women would be banned. They could just be in a mixed session anyway. They couldn't cheat in the other one. Right, another dream dies a death next, Paul, in The Independent, where it now seems it's unlikely they'll ever be able to take up my dream job as the Lavatory's Tsar.
Yeah, there's kind of two stories going on here in The Independent. The first one is about the Equalities Minister, Kemi Bakanoff. She's weighing into the culture war with a crackdown on gender-neutral loos, and I'll come to that in a second. And the other one is much what you're talking about is there was a rumour that her and Rishi would create a position for toilet minister or lavatory czar or whatever. But interestingly, a lot of our viewers may not know this, but GBNews has gender-neutiral toilets, but it's not really an issue here because we have a strict sort of white, straight male policy, so it's only those sort of people in the toilet.
I had an uncomfortable toiletry experience in the toilet before where...
Because you're not a white male, that's why.
Oh, yes. Here we go. I don't know what that means.
Lewis,
I don't know what that means.
I feel so seen by you. But you're right, there are two stories going on. Of course, it's The Independent, which is, again, pushing for their narrative, but they sell it like this is a victory somehow, like people are ridiculing this. But actually, they're mixing up two different stories here, which is it's not going to change the fact that Kemi Badenoch the government is going to introduce legislation that new builds public spaces will have to have biological female-only toilets, which is a victory for the people who have been fighting this, Lewis, right?
It's a victory for the developers. They're going to have to put more toilets in it. They're going to think, wow, this is great. We're more builders. It's not going to help actually the companies because it's going to cost more money. I mean, this is not in any way a victory. It just is more centralization. It's more how the government's got to get.
It's a victory if you're a woman who wants to be able to take a wee in peace. The Guardian next, and Lewis, it seems like the government has come up with a clever workaround in order to be racist.
Yeah, well, this is an interesting story, is that the government's targeting UK minorities with social media ads, despite of Facebook ads at campaigns aimed at certain types of groups. You can't just pick black people out or women out. You just have to take what you get.
Oh, it's almost like you're holding yourself back there. I've never seen that before.
No, I'm trying. You've got to be careful with this whole thing. And at the end of the
no, we have to be careful. You don't have to be careful.
I don't have to, because you've got it. You could just come in and say, that's ridiculous, Lewis. And I accept it. Yeah. It's this is the government. You wouldn't believe how much money the government is spending advertising to people interested in hijabs or Hinduism or Afro-textured hair. And because they don't want to come out and say we're looking for people who look like this.
Well, it's fascinating because it's illegal and Facebook has banned it, Paul. But this is called micro-targeting, where they're getting around it by, like, for example, they're talking about like a crime, a murder in the Somali community, and so they're targeting like the football teams or.
But
Somalian
they can't say are you in the Somali community?
Yeah, no. So they're doing, but they also are doing things like domestic violence. They're trying to do these campaigns to cut down on domestic violence, and targeting people who like Marvel movies. Yeah, which are like it's like again, I feel seen about the Marvel movies.
We very much live in the age of identity politics. So this is a lovely juxtaposition right in the middle of this age.
Ooh, big word.
Please let me know if you know what that means. However, I stand by it. We're in a lovely position here where we've got the same problem causing two different issues. We care only about identity. However, if we say we only care about identity, that's wrong. So that's the juxtaposition, that's the conflict. And in a lot of, because this is in The Guardian, a lot of this is what Lewis said. It's just, if you like Marvel movies, is for people who live at home with their mum or whatever. And they identify those people, and the identity politics works that way. It's when it starts to get into criminal activities and they've got hashtag whatever, 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 and it's associated that way because they've looked at the demographic in some way.
Do you know what it is? Can I just make one point?
Nah, final section coming up before beddy time, and there's some corkers. We've got gay Netflix, bald statistics, and death medication. What a time to be alive. See you in a sec.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, where I've just had a wonderful interval of Lewis Schaefer reading out all the abuse that people have been giving me on Twitter. Thank you so much, Lewis.
No, they've been reading my
really
Twitter
good.
thing.
No, appreciate it. Thanks. Really not.
No, they love
you at all.
These people love me.
Yes, they do. That's the problem. Kicking off with a cautionary tale in Monday's Times about the dangers of watching Netflix, Lewis.
Well, it's interesting. We mentioned Netflix because I am actually in the Heart of Stone movie.
Yeah, and I'm in my series, Hapless.
Hapless
Netflix as well.
Mine's on we're both
Mine's
on
a speaking
Netflix.
part.
Okay, well, I play a lover. I play a U.S. senator who's like involved.
I play a bald loser.
Whatever.
Talk about
so mine's
typecasting.
closer to the truth then.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know I was bisexual. Did Netflix find out before me? Some woman.
After watching Lewis Schaefer.
Some woman.
She was straight. She watched Lewis Schaefer in Heart of Whatever, and that was it.
By section 3.
So this woman, this lovely woman, Ellie House, she basically, this is a promotion for a Radio 4 show that she did. Did Big Tech know I was gay before I did? Because she became gay, but for 6 months before she decided she was gay, she was bombarded by TV suggestions about like programs about lesbianism and stuff like that.
Paul, isn't the issue here?
Can I get to my
Netflix...
point? I was getting to a point.
All right, I was just going to say, all right, well, Lewis...
No, let him go.
No.
Let him go.
I want to be fair. I don't want to deal with the abuse from people saying, you didn't let Lewis speak with his stupid mug.
That's why I'm an award-winning comedian, whatever it is.
Cover your face. The point, but Lewis, the point I want to make is, does Netflix actually make any non-LGBT TV shows?
Well, yes, exactly. Well, that was the point that I was getting at.
I'm glad I got in there.
I was the point because I went to see that great movie Oppenheimer, which had a fantastic happy ending.
Yeah.
But it's a joke. Wait.
Okay, just say your point.
And before, there were 30 minutes of ads, and every single one of those ads showed a lesbian couple. And I felt that they were talking to me. And by the time that I left, I was a lesbian.
Well, Lewis, Paul, this also, she says it also goes... It's all about algorithms, isn't it, Lewis? And it's also, she talks about TikTok. She says she went on TikTok and she got videos for hot bi girls, which coincidentally also happened to me. I'm just making the same joke.
Yeah, thank you. Because let me at least
But this is what we've seen, and everybody gets this now. You sort of mention a word and some speaker picks it up and suddenly you're getting adverts for this or that. But the idea that it's predictive is quite interesting.
Yeah, it's all connected to the internet, isn't it? It's probably not big tech or Netflix that's predicting that she's bisexual. It's probably her internet history.
No, it's not that. Tell him exactly what the story is. Is that the TV is all lesbian couples, lesbianism, homosexuality.
Lewis, we don't want people turning over
all the time.
Right, Paul. The Mail now has some hate speech
it's not
for us.
predictive.
I'm feeling very triggered about this story.
The countries with the highest numbers of bald men have been revealed. Both the US and the UK are cracking the top 10. The UK is 5th with 39.2% of men.
You're welcome, UK.
Experiencing a degree of hair loss, and the US is 8th with 38%. Interesting low, and I was trying to find an interesting point in here. Some research suggests that Caucasian men are more likely to go bald than other races. So even racism is bold now, and this is basically for Leo tomorrow, isn't it? What's racist now?
Yes, but you want to know something? This story I have no respect for the story.
Oh, really?
No respect.
Oh, no.
Because first
Let's
of all,
tell the poor old Daily Mail.
Yes, I'm going to tell. Boy, the Daily Mail. I like reading it. There's lots of stuff in it. But in the article, it says that it could be caused by diet, and it does. There's a very high correlation between a high carbohydrate diet and pattern baldness.
Okay.
Wait.
No. Lewis, the Times seems to think that we need to whisper this story. Come on.
And it says that
Lewis, the Times seems to think we need to whisper this story. We've got 2 minutes. Come on, mate. Tell us the story. Do your job.
Oh, the Times.
Yeah, the Times. Move on to the next one.
I just want to say this.
No, I don't want you to.
Vitamin B12.
Okay, vitamin B12. Wonderful. Now, blah, blah, blah. Do the Times story before we run out of time.
Well, who cares? Let them buy the Times tomorrow. They don't.
do.
You buy the. No, what they said was.
Oh, my God. Okay, Paul, do the
problem
Times. Oh, he's going to do it now.
The problem, we're too shy to talk about building enough loos. This is a perfect Times article. They're saying there's not enough public loos. The Times are all building all the time. The Times of London, the British Times, they just promote building every single time we do these shows.
I never use public toilets other than for dating.
Oh, really? OK, but this is an issue, and it's interesting to read how, essentially, toilets, which was through Selfridges, I believe, created the first one. No, we'll go. That's what created female toilets. It was an economic thing. Right, we're going to do one more thing, I think.
Where should we go?
Which is, we're going to do quickly, Thrilled to be Alive, the Daily Mail death meditation.
Oh, well, this story... Yeah, very, very quickly. I'll just read it, and that's the story. It's harrowing, really. One of the latest wellness trends has people wrapping themselves up as mummies and picturing their dead bodies to imagine and come to terms with their eventual death.
Now, does it work if I imagine Lewis as a dead body?
That's not the same.
Make you feel better?
You have to imagine your own death.
Well, I imagine myself as my dead mummy. And
dead mummy.
She is really dead. I just imagine.
All right, alas, the show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look
B12.
at Monday's front pages. We're going to do Daily Mail, patients trying to escape Labour's Welsh NHS. The Times, shots fired in migrant clash before vessel sank. Guardian, lower income pupils expected to be hit hardest by great inflation. Express, Brexit boost bringing back business to Britain. The Sun, Kane could play for Germany. And finally, Daily Star, we're made for it. And those are your front pages. That's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Lewis Schaefer and Paul Cox. We're back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Andrew Doyle and the adults. Have a good night. If you're watching 5 p.m, stay tuned for the breakfast. Have a great Monday.
There's no B12.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. We've got rain coming up through the next 24 hours, could be heavy at times, but the good news is that it does start to turn drier by the middle of the week. Low pressure in charge at the moment, but that moves out the way as we head towards Wednesday and high pressure replaces it, settling our weather down. This evening we have outbreaks of heavy rain pushing in across the West Country, Wales, spreading north and eastwards as we move through into the early hours. This turning heavy at times over parts of northern Wales, northern England, and Met Office warning in force here. Clearer skies for Northern Ireland, Scotland, some showery